All right, guys, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Shit Show, episode 9 already. I'm Kyle, joined by Danny. We just finished watching the Cowboys Cardinals. Well, we'll call it the Cardinals game because the Cowboys weren't really there. But interesting week overall for football, and especially fantasy football. We're gonna get into that just in a few minutes here. But first, I want to see how my boy Danny's doing. How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. Had to sit through that Dallas game, which was rough to say the least, and I don't even have a rooting interest. It was just rough to watch Dalton play like that and watch that whole offense look out of sync.
Yeah, Ugh. We were already a bit concerned before Dak went down. Um, then we kind of gave Dalton a little bit of credit, I would say last week. You know, he's played 10 years, he's gone to the playoffs with the Bengals. He's probably one of the better backups. I would say all is true. But if your starter can't really get these guys going, chances are your backup won't. And I think that's what we saw tonight. No rooting interest for you, but I was down double digits going into the doubleheader Monday nights in fantasy this week. I had Kyler Murray. The guy I was playing against had Josh Allen. I counted it out. I was ready to come on here say I'm 0-3 this week, but Murray, holy shit!
Yeah.
I think he completed like 9 passes.
He did 9 for 24 against that Dallas defense. That's
Insane,
weird. Weird.
insane. I think he passed rush for about 250 yards total, a few touchdowns. What a night! What a fucking night! But yeah, man, that got me through the week. That was awesome. I do like Kyler. Even like I don't know, those stats are weird, man. I feel like that's like a Russell Wilson like a couple years ago kind of stat, like except he threw it actually more than Russell would have, if that makes sense. Like the completions are so low, but such a good game. I don't know.
Yeah, 9 for 24. That's a hair above 33% completion against Dallas's defense, which
Yep.
we can agree they put the stat right at the end of the game. Most points allowed through the first 6 games of the season. No one's allowed as many points as them for 60 years.
Yeah.
And think about it. We've seen some 0-16 teams that suck.
Yeah. Those
And there's
Browns.
an and there's going to be an 0-16 team this year that sucks, maybe even worse, and they're
Oh,
not giving up that many points. So to have him only complete 9 passes seems weird.
yeah.
But 2 throwing touchdowns, the 10 carries, 74 yards, and a rushing touchdown will always raise the floor for any quarterback with those rushing numbers. But I don't know. Is it worrying at all that he only had 9 completions? I mean, if you take away that long one to D Hop when the game was kind of out of reach, he probably has what 120 passing yards.
Well, take that away. He also had an 80-yard bomb to Christian Kirk.
Yeah, so it was like two
So
passes
two
gave
passes was
him all his
140
yards.
yards right there. But yeah, a little like
Weird.
him and D Hop, they weren't really on the same page tonight, I would say. D Hop had 7 targets, 2 catches. Before that 60-yarder, he was 6 targets, 1 catch, 13 yards. And you could just kind of see it in his attitude and his body. He's just like, it's not really clicking tonight. So thank God they still dominated. I mean, the run game was good. Kyler could still run better than almost anyone in the league. So,
Yeah.
but not, I don't want to worry just yet. I mean, he's still putting up the fantasy points. He throws quite a few picks too, and he could still get the points there. So if he starts cleaning that up, I mean, he didn't have any turnovers this game, which was a plus. I mean, like I said, Dallas defense, but it still says something. Um, but yeah, man, I think more of the focus is on that Dallas team. Are you comfortable having anybody on Dallas on your fantasy team? I mean, Zeke coughed it up twice
Um,
tonight.
yeah. It's it's primetime Andy Dalton. I'm not overly concerned the way that game probably makes most people. I'm sure anyone who picked up Dalton is going to release Dalton. Um, Anyone who had any of the three receivers probably getting worried a little bit. Cooper had a decent game considering the blowout. Um,
Yeah, well,
but
garbage time touchdown, I think saved that
that'll
game
help.
for
That'll
him,
help.
right?
Yeah. Um, but I think they're going to be fine. That defense isn't good. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. I could easily see Dalton having a few games where he has like 375 yards and 3 touchdowns, the stuff like that, just based off of their defense being really bad. So I wouldn't worry too much I still think Cooper is going to be serviceable. Uh, Lamb seems like he's getting involved still, and even Gallup. Gallup was targeted 6 times,
Mhm.
so it's not like they're going away. 10 targets for Cooper, 10 targets for Lamb, 11 for Zeke, 6 for Gallup. I think they're still going to get the volume that they need to be productive. I just think the outcome was really ugly this week.
Oh my God.
It wasn't fun to watch, but he's 34 for 54. He threw the ball 54 times.
That's insane.
It's gonna be what happens most of the time. He had a touchdown, 2 picks. So the passing's there. I think Dalton's stats are gonna get better the more he gets comfortable. The offensive line is shit.
Yeah.
Zach Martin went down. He's probably done. So there's another piece to that offensive line that's not going to be playing. So they're going to have pretty much an entire backup line. So that's not going to work out very well for them. So maybe Zeke's rushing stats go down based off of that. Um, but I think throwing wise, they threw the ball 54 times. If you have a receiver for that team, I think you're still feeling good about it because of the amount of throwing that this team's going to do by default.
Yeah. Especially if they've given up the most points off turnovers this year as well, and it didn't slow down tonight. So if they're chasing games, especially, or if they get in a hole early, more reason to throw it. I mean, if you're a Zeke owner, are you a bit worried? Even then, I don't think so. I mean, those goal lines, he's still, like you said, double-digit targets, 11 targets or some shit for Zeke this week. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of points, half PPR, full PPR. I mean, even if he only catches half and goes for a little bit of a run, I guess you're pretty confident. The Cowboys in general, non-fantasy wise, I think they're extremely lucky to find themselves in a division that they're in. Like, that's doesn't say much if you look at that division, but
They have a half game lead.
which is ridiculous. It's honestly insane.
Every team is within half the game.
That's
Like it's within a game. It's 2-4, then it's 1-4-1, then 1-5, 1-5.
yeah.
The
Doesn't
Giants,
make
who were
any
just
sense.
winless, have now caught up. They have shortened the lead by 50% by beating the Washington football team. Like
Yeah. They
that
almost beat the
division,
Cowboys.
yeah. And if they would have beat the Cowboys, they would be leading the division. Think
Yeah.
about that. The Giants. Like
Yeah.
it's terrible. And you can only hope that you finish as the 5 seed in the NFC. That's your best bet. I don't
Yeah.
even think you want to win the division. I think you prefer to get fifth and just have to play the Cowboys
Yeah.
because that looks like it's
Weaker
going to be the easiest
opponent.
win. Because
Absolutely.
even if Philly gets there, I'm not crazy. Like Philly hasn't looked good. Philly always seems like there's a problem. I know they look good maybe for about 15 minutes against Baltimore, but the game was kind of out of reach when they came back. They made it a game. They made it close, but they were getting demolished for 3 quarters. It felt like so.
Yeah.
I don't know. That division is stupid, but it'll keep Dallas in win mode because they can win the division still, which is always good. You
Yeah.
want
As
teams
long
to
as
be
it's
able to have to go for it.
close. Yeah. As long as it's close, more on the line. They come out playing harder every time, knowing that almost every week you can either be at the top of the division or drop down a spot pretty much in that division. Like it's week over week. Like you're never going to have like a clear lead of the division, I think, which is, like I said, it's pretty important for teams. And they're obviously going to play harder if you don't have a huge lead. So
Yeah, they
team
get they
to
get
watch.
Washington. They get Washington next week, and then they have Philly. So there's 2 divisional games right away.
Yeah.
So if Dalton bounces back, which I mean they're both road games, but still it's divisional matchups. Maybe you get that kind of game that you're looking for. And he goes off. And week 16, the finals for most fantasy leagues, they're playing Philly. That's going to be one of those games where it might be for the division at that point.
Yeah.
So you know that the players that you have for the Cowboys will probably be in a meaningful game in week 16 based off of how this division's shaken up.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Overall, like I mentioned, weird fantasy week. Probably definitely the lowest scoring fantasy week of the season thus far overall across every league, I would say. It sucks to say, but one of my leagues that I was doing okay in, I didn't even crack 75 points. I had 5 players combined for 15 points. And like those are like, I mean, I started Madison, huge letdown, huge disappointment,
Massive.
high hopes. He always looks good, like you mentioned off air here. Always looks good when he comes in for Cook. The one game he really gets that start, shat the bed. Yeah, they got into a hole early, but they were still running. I mean, it just wasn't productive at all.
No, no. The good news is they have a bye week and then Cook's back.
Thank
So that'll
God.
be the last of Madison that we'll see, hopefully for starting purposes, because when Cook's there, Cook is a difference maker. And even the week before, Madison ran so well against Seattle. And then
Yeah,
to see him just completely fall off like that was weird.
against
It's like
Atlanta.
there was some sort of pressure on him.
Yeah,
But hopefully Cook's back in 100% coming in after the bye, and he goes back on his pace because he was what, the third best fantasy player running back wise
yep.
before he got hurt. So let's hope that
He's a
he continues
monster.
that. Yeah, because every time you turn on the TV, it looks like he has 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. I feel like that's just a normal Dalvin Cook line.
Yeah, it's like damn, like it's so standard now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
There's
guess
just
like it's something you can expect with like a guy like Kirk Cousins, so inconsistent. Like running the ball is such a big part of your game plan, no matter what kind of day he's having. Because normally it's not going to be the best. But I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. When he is throwing though, Justin Jefferson,
yeah.
god
I was gonna
damn,
say,
is he the
are
real deal?
are
Is
we?
he what everyone hoped he would be, and then some so far? I mean, he's had 300-yard plus games out of 6 playing with a
Yep.
guy like Kirk Cousins, and they've had some tough matchups. They played Seattle, they played Green Bay, they played Tennessee, played the Colts, who are a top defense too for so. And he's had
Yeah,
100 plus yards 3 different times, which is
pretty impressive for a rookie.
for a
Yeah,
rookie, like damn,
yeah.
I like
And
him a lot.
a rookie playing second receiver to a guy established like Thielen,
Yep.
and having to deal with Kirk Cousins as his quarterback. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I'm, I was high on Justin Jefferson. I drafted him in a rookie draft. I loved what he did in LSU. I thought he was very underrated. I thought there was a bunch of teams that probably should have taken him higher than where he went.
Yep.
Based on his ability to play in the slot and outside, I thought he was a real difference maker. It showed up when you watched the Joe Burrow tape, where when he needed something, it was Justin Jefferson making the play. So to see him just translate that immediately into the pros is special. And the only problem with Justin Jefferson so far for me is the schedule that he's going to have to deal with for playoffs, for
Oh my
fantasy playoffs.
god. Yeah.
At Tampa Bay, against Chicago, but the finals is at New Orleans. So you'd
Saints.
assume that that's going to be a good matchup for him. But at Tampa's been looking really good.
Yeah, their
They
defense,
haven't given
bro.
up a lot of points to quarterbacks or receivers.
Destroyed
And
Rodgers.
Chicago's the quietest team right now. They're winning games so ugly that you just dismiss them, but
Yep.
they're not allowing a lot of points. So those two matchups scare me. He's gonna have some easy matchups throughout it. He still has Detroit on the schedule. He's still got Dallas, Carolina seems to be giving up some points here and there. Jacksonville. So those are some good matchups leading into the playoffs. It's once you get into the playoffs where you're going to be unsure if he's going to be if you're going to start him or not. But I'm pleasantly surprised so far. I think he's what, in the PPR he's receiver 5 right now.
Yeah, massive.
That's crazy, and it's pretty much three good games. Ever like since week 3, 30 points, 14, 5, 39.
That's it.
Like he's the
175
problem.
yards, 103, and then the week that just ended, 166 and 2 touchdowns. Like, wow. Like, he's obviously doing really well. And what for me, it's like, yeah, he was good. Obviously, LSU, he was good. He was on the best team in college football with the best quarterback in college football. And someone say he was their second best receiver, depending. And
Yep.
they also had one of the best running backs, so I guess it's easier to play well when you're on the best of the best in every aspect of the game. So to transition, go to the NFL to a team like the Vikings and play for a guy with a guy like Kirk Cousins, who's super inconsistent and not the best quarterback to say the least. Pretty impressive. I'm super happy with him. I literally picked him up, thought he would just be a bench guy, maybe throw him in on a couple weeks based on matchups, based on my own receivers that I'm pretty confident with.
Yeah.
But that's because my trio in front of him was Jameson Crowder, which I still love. He's super consistent no matter how well the Jets are always doing bad. So how
Yeah.
bad the Jets are doing. I also have Juju, huge letdown
Mhm.
after week one, hasn't really been anywhere. And I have
Yeah.
Chris Godwin.
Another letdown.
You're now playing with Tom Brady instead of Winston. Your team put up 38 points this week, and you didn't even crack 50 yards. So Jefferson might have to be my guy. Like he's probably gonna be starting most weeks moving into it, and then playoffs,
Yeah.
we'll reassess. But pretty
Yeah,
wild.
unless you see something from Juju at this point, it's almost hard to start him because
It's
you just
extremely
don't
hard.
know. You really don't know what's happening with him because that offense is scoring, but
Yeah,
he's just not scoring. And his routes are not deep. They're very short crossing routes and little plays. There, he if he touches the ball, he's getting 6 yards. You're not seeing that big play that he had 2 years ago when I guess defenses were worrying about Antonio Brown more. So it's weird to see him not take the top off of defense right now. And you're seeing a rookie
another
take
rookie,
his
man.
place,
Yeah,
and become the focal point almost. It's looking like they're running the ball well with Connor. Connor's looking really good.
yeah,
He's
very
looking like
happy.
someone you can trust week in and week out. But besides that, I you never know with this team. James Washington's getting involved. What happens when Johnson comes back? Is he gonna have a bigger role now that Claypool is taking away some of what his role should have been? So now does he start taking away from what Juju's targets are gonna look like? I don't know. I'm skeptical on Juju the rest of the way. That team's firing on all cylinders, and he can't get even a crumb from it. It's weird.
That's what's scary. Like everyone's so happy to get Big Ben back. Week 1, 2 touchdowns. You're like, okay, this is Juju. This is what we needed. He was super happy to be back. Big Ben being back. Uh, but like you said, Claypool's looking like receiver 1. Johnson, target wise, yardage, could be receiver 2. And then you got Juju. Who would have thought? Potential receiver 3. That's scary, man. Because Claypool probably wasn't drafted in your league unless you have a deep league or you went out on a limb or whatever, late rounds.
Yeah.
Johnson, he was probably drafted in 12 team leagues, I would say at least. There was a lot of
Yeah. He was a popular
there's hype
sleeper.
around him. They were hoping,
Yeah.
everyone had him as a sleeper, so he automatically wasn't a sleeper. It's like if you don't draft him late, you're an idiot type thing. But yeah, man, and Juju is like I don't know, top 15, maybe a little bit earlier than that, top 15 receiver.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it, man. So yeah, that's scary.
All right. So you want to hear they have 4 receivers. They go with 4 receivers. They like to use a bunch of them. They like to go at it. Are you ready to hear their target share for the year?
For
All
the
right.
Yeah, this is gonna upset me.
Juju has the most. He's at 28. Johnson second. He's missed some time, but he's still second. He has 26. He's tied with James Washington. Washington also has 26. Claypool has 24.
Fuck. So it's pretty much split
They
almost
are
even,
almost splitting
25%
it
each. Yeah.
across the board. So Juju has the most catches. He has 23. He's catching 23 out of 28 targets. Which is great. He has 194 yards.
Yeah, they're not big plays, man.
Like where are they going? They're going for what? Not even 8 yards.
Yeah.
Like 8 yards a catch. Like what? That's insane.
Yeah, you hate to see it, but like like Claypool is just kind of lights out too. Like I guess he's your deep guy now.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
he's looking good.
He has 335 yards on 17 catches.
Yeah. And he does like a lot of like he's involved in a lot of like he runs a little bit too where he
Yeah.
picks up, some decent yardage, a couple, touchdowns as well. So that adds to his value, I would say. That's something Juju, you're not going to see, or you're not going to use Juju that way. This guy, the way he moves is, I don't know, a little bit different. So, yeah, man, Pittsburgh, weird to have a receiver there. Who knows? Because like, especially like what you've seen in the past, like Claypool could just disappear for the next 3 weeks, and it could be Juju for those 3 weeks because Pittsburgh's done that before with receivers. Like, oh, this guy comes out of nowhere killing it. Who's AB? Okay, AB's back, even though it's not such a big difference with a guy like AB. He was always somewhat there. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and Johnson's targets are going to come back. First game he had 10, second game he had 13. That's 23 right there in
Yeah.
just the first 2 weeks. Then he gets hurt. He has 2 targets against Houston. They have the bye. Then against Philly has 1. Then he didn't play last week. So in the last 4 weeks he's had 3 targets and he's still tied for second on the team.
Yeah.
So I assume when he comes back, there's a boatload of targets for him. And then Claypool needs to get involved. Where does that leave Juju? Catching under routes for the rest of the season?
Pretty much.
I don't know. I have no words. I don't even know what you do with him. You
Yeah.
can't trade him because he has no value. So you have to hold on to him and hope it gets better. And there's just no path to that. They're just too deep at receiver, and they want to run the ball. So they're going to be running an offense that's going to be very run heavy. Connor's going to get his 20 carries. The defense is playing good. So
Great.
you're hoping that they get turnovers and they get the ball back into the offense's hand more often than not, so that they have extra possessions. But even those, I don't know what you do with Juju. I really don't. I would consider, if you have better options, that he sits the bench until he figures it out, because I wouldn't trust him week in and week out anymore.
That's it. Like I feel I have to go Jefferson over him. Like if it comes down to it,
Yeah.
which it probably will most weeks. So I'll revisit that. We'll see how that, but 1.5 points. Come on. Come
Yeah.
on.
4 targets, 2 catches, 6 yards.
Like he can't be doing that.
And the week before he had 4 catches for 28. Like this is what happens out of the bye. And now they're gonna play here. Their next 2 weeks is at Tennessee and at Baltimore.
Yeah, tough.
Like you're not starting him in those games. You can't bring yourself to start him because you don't know those matchups.
Yeah.
I mean, then he gets a nice little run. He's got at Dallas, Cincinnati, and Jacksonville. So that seems like maybe that's where he peaks.
Yeah. We'll have to see. I mean,
I'll
have Chris Carson and Kamara back after this week, so Juju's not going to be such a big focal point of my offense because he'll be gone and I'll be flexing someone else, and he'll be on the bench at least. But yeah, I think that those teams being on a bye played into such a low scoring fucking week, man.
Yeah.
Like 2 of the top 5 running backs were out. Drew Brees was out. Russell Wilson was out. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf.
DK. Yeah.
All these guys are out, and fuck. And those are also teams that give up a lot of points.
Like, yeah, they're fun games.
So the fact that they were both on a bye really fucking hurt a lot of people, myself included. But
yeah, and you're not even mentioning Jacobs being out. The Raiders had a bye.
Yeah.
Waller being out. The Chargers were out. So Keenan, Herbert, like there was a bunch of talented players out this week. So I think that's why it was such a low scoring week. It felt weird. There was a lot of like low scores, and you're just like, well, what is going on across the board? This week is going to be a little easier. I mean, Ravens, no one really, besides Lamar and Mark Andrews, I don't think there's anyone on that team that you're really worried about.
Yeah.
Vikings have a bye, which is better for most players because Cook will come back healthier. Dolphins, I like what I'm seeing from the Dolphins. Preston Williams is slowly inching his way into the must-start region.
Yeah.
With Fitzpatrick throwing like crazy, man. Gaskin, the real winner of the Le'Veon Bell signing. And then and then the Colts. The Colts have a bye this week. Hopefully they figure out if T.Y. Hilton can play football anymore. That's my hope.
It looked like it. He looked a bit better. In comparison to his other weeks, he looks better.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the score? Did you
see
the box score for Ty? You just said Ty looked better. Do you know his stats?
Honestly, it's probably just because I saw him in the end zone.
Yeah, it was called back. That was a flag. It was called back. So he didn't score. He had 1 catch for 11 yards.
Jeez. Oh fuck. Yeah.
5 targets.
Trey Burton took over that game.
Yeah. 5 targets, 1 catch, 11 yards. Like he's
like, who do you have on that team?
Almost to the point now where you can feel safe dropping him.
Yeah.
Marcus Johnson had the most targets this week with 8.
Yeah. Well, he gets a lot of fucking deep balls though.
Yeah, he had 5 catches, 108 yards.
Like,
then Pascal had 7. Hines had 6. Burton and Hilton had 5. Like Rivers threw 44 times. He dropped back 44 times.
Yeah, that's
And he has
madness.
1 catch to show for it. Like I thought once Pittman got hurt, there was going to be openings for Hilton to come back and play well. But it's just not the case. There's just no chemistry between him and Philip Rivers. None. 0.
No, which
Oh.
you fucking hate to see for a guy like Ty, because I feel like he's been a good fucking team guy, man. He's been through a lot of shit on that team. He's obviously seen some highs, but a lot of lows too, man. Like he's been through a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah. He
I
hasn't
don't
had
know,
a
man.
100-yard game since Luck retired. It's
Yeah,
not a mistake.
I wouldn't touch
That's not a
anyone
coincidence.
on that team. Maybe Jonathan Taylor. Maybe
Trey Burton.
Trey Burton. Yeah, this guy fucking starts him in our DraftKings.
I think if you have a tight end that you're not crazy about, or one of those, it's a bye week and Andrews is out, next week, because Colts are on a bye this week. So next week, if you have a tight end on a bye, I think Burton is gonna be a sneaky ad. He's getting the targets, especially in that offense. Like I said, there's not many guys getting targets that you can really trust. But since he's come back from off the IR, he's had really, really good games. So I think that this might be the time to maybe try and buy low. I would say he's got 16 targets in 3 games, 11 catches. He scored last week twice, one on a rush, one on a reception. Rivers likes the tight ends. He's Mo Ali Cox was a popular waiver wire pickup 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So
Yep.
I think if you can get Trey Burton, I think this is the right time and hope for the best, especially with the tight end position. Week in and week out, you really have no idea what you're going to get unless you have the top 2 guys. So I think it's worth a flyer if you're unsure of your tight end.
Yeah, I like him, and I mean, he's been unlucky, Trey Burton, but he's always been good.
Yeah,
he's been in some bad situations, I guess you can say, but yeah, I would say he's always been a pretty decent play. I like him personally, so I hope this is kind of like a little bit of a rebirth for him, a little bit, a little bounce back, but I guess we won't know until it happens. But obviously, a great start, a great game last week. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know who else I touch on that team. Probably nobody.
I'm still rolling with Taylor. Taylor is going to be.
Well, he was the
gonna
first guy, right? That as soon as Mac went down, like everyone who drafted Taylor is like, thank God. Thank God, because like seeing Mac kind of just be their guy still. I mean, it didn't last long at all.
No,
before that injury, but
not at all.
Little worrisome, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he's still like he hasn't had one of those really breakaway games, but he's still on par with. He's at 86 points, so it's not like he's drastically behind everyone else. He's still in that range. He's in between right now, Gurley and Gaskin. He has more points than Connor, so he's definitely someone that you want to. It looks like he is getting some targets too. He's getting some catches week in and week out, which will always raise the floor a little bit. And that team likes to run the ball. So I trust Taylor moving forward. I think he's a low end 2, high end flex. So if you have him as your 3rd running back, I think you're comfortable starting him each week. But yeah, he's bound to have that game. He's bound to have that 120-yard touchdown, maybe 2 touchdown game. So I think it's coming soon. They have the bye, keep him fresh, and then he should be back. He only has one game of 100 yards. It's when he had the most carries. He had 26. So the last couple of weeks only had 12 a week. So hopefully they run a little bit more. They're not down to Cincinnati by 3 scores early where they have to abandon the run.
Insane.
But they played Detroit coming out of their bye. I think that's a good matchup for him. I bet he has 100 yards and a touchdown from that matchup.
Yeah, and it's pretty impressive, like you said, to be near Gaskin, Gurley, that range, considering he's also sharing a lot of touches with Hines. Gurley doesn't really share too much. Gaskin, more of the same story. It's mostly him now moving forward. He's proven to be that guy. So it's pretty impressive that splitting, he's still up there. And once he does have that breakout, I think he'll just moving forward, you're just gonna see more and more of him. So hopefully, and especially with an O-line like that, that they love to run. They want to run that ball.
Oh yeah.
That's their bet. That's their strong part, man. Like you got Quentin Nelson up there. If you're not running the ball, you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a guy like Philip Rivers throwing the ball. You want him to be handing it off, So
Yes. Yes. Colts fans. Yes. Yes.
yes,
I'm sorry.
not
I'm
your
sorry.
problem anymore. Herbert.
I've been through it. I've been through it. I know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah,
So
Herbert.
there's one player I do want to touch on before we go into the ending of this podcast. And maybe the most surprising running back based off of where he was drafted, right before the draft, all the uncertainty around him. Ronald Jones.
Wow.
I 3 straight games of 100 yards rushing.
Yep.
Get involved in the passing game as well, and it's not bad. Like he's hidden some good defenses. Chargers run defense has been really good this year. It's held up. Chicago's defense as a whole has been really good this year, and then Green Bay, and he's rushed for 100 yards on each of them. First Tampa running back since Doug Martin, who had that unbelievable year.
Yeah.
So I think he is someone to look out for. I think it's kind of weird to see him just shoot up. We thought right away. I think it was the night of our draft. Fournette signs, and it just sends his draft stock plummeting. Everyone just assumes, oh, they went out and signed Fournette. Fournette's their guy. Jam done. That's it. But Fournette's been off the field for a lot of the time, and Jones has just run away with it in that offense. It's kind of crazy to see how well he's played. He had 113 yards and 2 touchdowns this week against Green Bay. That's not a joke.
And it makes a difference too, like just his situation. The Bucks, like Tom Brady. Chances are, I mean, it's been a weird start to the season for Brady and the Bucks, but like they've had leads, they're running more, and I think they have a good balance, and they also have a good defense.
Very
But
good.
they have a good balance between the run and the pass, which really helps the run. Because if you have Brady throwing, like you can't just stack the box and shut this guy down. So if he breaks that first, that line, he's going for a bit. And fuck, man, he runs hard. And Bruce Arians like, oh, this is our guy. Even when they signed Fournette, and you're like, okay, well, it's Bruce Arians. Who the fuck knows what's gonna come out of it? Man, he's staying true. And I mean, Fournette, yeah, he's banged up a little bit too, but they're sticking with him, and I think it's the right call. You gotta.
Yeah, and it gets easier for him. His next 4 weeks are like what you want from a running back's weeks. Las Vegas, who I think's the worst or second worst against the run.
Yeah,
the Giants, who are just flat out terrible. New Orleans, who we don't know what we're getting from New Orleans' defense week in and week out.
Yeah.
Then Carolina, maybe the worst rush defense. So it's gonna be 4 big. He could rattle off 7 straight weeks of 100 yards rushing.
Absolutely.
And they have a couple of
surprising.
A couple tough weeks. Then the week 13 bye, which sucks because it's your last regular season game for fantasy purposes. But his playoff run for fantasy, Minnesota, who is just shit.
Yeah, they just got torched.
At Atlanta, who have nothing to play for in week 15, they're going to be completely eliminated by that point. And then at Detroit, those are your 3 playoff games for Ronald Jones. This might be a time where his value is very high, but you still go ahead and trade for him.
Yeah.
Because you're hoping that the owner that has him is going to sell high. And be like, oh, Fournette's going to come back next week, and who knows? But I think this is Ronald Jones' job now. I think it's safe to say, after seeing the weeks that he's had against 3 good defenses, I think it's time to just hand the reins over to him, let him do his thing, and just get behind him. Because it looks like Brady's enjoying it too. He's throwing to him. He's getting a few targets here and there. He had 2 catches, 3 catches, 6 catches in the last week. So I think it's maybe a buy high kind of guy. You say, you know what, I'm going to go out. I think it's even
all in.
Yeah, because even if you're buying higher than his value should be right now, I think it's still good. I think his ceiling is higher than what he's had the last few weeks, based on his matchups coming up. I think his matchups get easier. I think that team is on a roll right now, and I think they're finding themselves. And I think that it's going to hit a really good stride these next 4 weeks, plus the 3 weeks coming up for the fantasy playoffs. I think that team is a team that you might want to buy players for. Look for Godwin. Godwin, we touched on at the beginning of the show, not looking good,
No.
but that schedule looks good.
Yeah.
So maybe you try and get a trade where maybe that owner's fed up of having Godwin, and you maybe sell someone that's a little bit higher, having a kind of a bounce back year, and you buy him low. Mike Evans, all he's doing is catching touchdowns, not much else. He's clearly hurt. The only problem with Mike Evans is they don't have a bye week until week 13.
Yeah.
So we don't know how. I mean, hopefully they sit him out a couple weeks here. Could be the time. Rest them up for the playoffs.
I mean, you would.
Vegas, Giants, New Orleans.
Yeah, they might have
Maybe.
to play him through these ones and rest him maybe a little bit later. I mean,
because week 12, the week before
It's
their
tough.
bye, they can't even give him that second bye week for the rest because they play Kansas City.
yeah.
So you definitely want him for that game because you definitely want that's going to be one of those games where week 12 it might be a battle for position in the NFC.
Yeah.
Seattle's looking good. They just smashed Green Bay, which is going to help them tie breaking wise. But because it's Seattle and how they're playing, you're probably going to have to win that game.
Absolutely. And like, who would have thought we'd be sitting here talking about Ronald Jones and trading for him in week 6, actively trying to get him on your team for a playoff and finals run in fantasy football? If you told me this a couple months ago before we drafted, I would have fucking laughed to your face, be like, okay, let me join your league because at least I know I'm not finishing dead last, because like if this is what you got to say about a guy like Ronald Jones, I can only imagine what your team's going to look like. And fuck, man. I mean, this is his year. And like you said, I don't see him slowing down either. He's only going to get better. Matchups are just all in his favor. So yeah, he's definitely our running back to have your eyes on. And if you have him, you probably got him at a good spot and you're very happy. But if you have doubts,
right now he's my 4th running back. I have Edwards-Helaire, Sanders, and Jonathan Taylor, and I'm gonna have to start Ronald Jones now.
Yeah,
he's forced my hand. I'm gonna have to play matchups from here on out. I just have no choice. I mean, Sanders being hurt this week is great for me.
Makes it easy.
Makes it easy, an easy choice. But
he's forcing my hand moving forward. Like you said, you got Sanders. And you also have Helaire. Le'Veon Bell signed with the Chiefs. I feel like that happened right after we recorded our last episode, and we kind of spoke into existence. You brought them up, like, if he's going to a contender, Chiefs, that's really going to hurt me. A day later, not even a full 24 hours, I want to say, signed with the Chiefs. So
my luck.
I mean,
but
the way he played tonight,
I'm hoping that gave him a kick in the ass. But I think it was more the offensive line. I think it was more the offensive line. It looked like he was having better holes to run through.
Yeah,
because it didn't look like that the first since the opener. It did not look like that. It looked like he was getting hit behind the line at the line. I mean, the big run that he had today didn't even look like he got touched. He was just running right through.
That's it. Like he looked like
a small guy.
Yeah, he's not a big frame at all. So like he can squeeze.
Yeah, and they still couldn't give him any running lanes. So I'm hoping that it's there's something that changed over the last week that forced them to maybe look at their run blocking, because it definitely looked like a different team. I'll give them that. It looked like a different team this week.
Yeah, and I think both. So they were playing Buffalo. They were both undefeated before last week, and they both played tonight, coming off their first loss of the season. And I mean, they play well after. I mean, a loss like that to the fucking Raiders. You're like, yeah. I'm sure Andy Reid ripped them a little bit. There's a lot of weird shit that happened in that game, and they bounced back just like I think most people thought they would. Before we get, we're talking a little bit of running backs here. So before we get into DraftKings, Philip Lindsay was back.
Yes,
he played a pretty good Patriots team defensively. He cracked 100 yards. Obviously, Gordon was out. He also has some off-field issues that he's got into. But is this where we see that slow transition that we spoke about, where he's starting to take over? Gordon might not be as much value. I know we spoke about it
Yeah,
earlier into the season, weeks ago, I would say. But to have a pretty 23 carries, a lot of carries. You got to think a lot of those would be shared. But to crack 100 yards, it's pretty impressive first game back.
yeah. I'm sure we're gonna see a split because even Freeman didn't look terrible. I'm assuming that Fangio is gonna just run some sort of running back by committee. You'll see probably Gordon have 15, Lindsey probably have around 11, 10, and then Freeman will probably have a handful. I think they're just gonna go to that because Lock didn't look good against the Patriots, so it
Yeah,
might be in their best interest to run the ball as much as possible. And when you have three capable running backs, I think that's what they're gonna do. So I'm sure the weeks of Melvin Gordon being start worthy are almost gone now.
yeah.
And if you're starting him, you're taking a chance that
You need him to
Lindsey,
score essentially to make up
yeah,
those points.
yeah,
In my opinion, I don't see
yeah,
him rushing for points. Not
not
too
really.
much. He's gonna have to get a couple goal line touches. You're hoping, but even at that, I like Lindsay at the goal line better than Gordon. I don't know. I find him a stronger body, but we'll see. I think Gordon's stock is gonna drop here, but it was good to see Lindsay back and to crack 100 yards. Made me very happy. I ended
Yeah,
up picking up for some reason. He was a free agent
yeah, I saw that. It was very
in one
weird
of
in that
our
league.
leagues. Not
Yeah,
sure how that happened. It is only a 10-teamer, but still, if someone gave up on him, I'll happily take him.
yeah, it's worth the lottery ticket because one Gordon injury and
That's your
you're golden.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So let's wrap her up. DraftKings um, took the dub this week. We
yay.
texted. I forgot to switch up my lineup too much, but it was still a pretty good lineup. I put up quite a few points, luckily. I think the biggest thing was D Hop, like we spoke about a little bit earlier. Only two catches. I think that was the difference in our league. I mean, the fact that you started Trey Burton and he just destroyed. I was not feeling too good about that. But this week, I don't remember who he said was a good play for last week. I think I said Slayton. He did.
Yeah,
He had a
he had a
decent. He
touchdown.
scored a touchdown, so
Yeah,
I guess that makes up for
I
anything.
I had Montgomery had a
He had a
lackluster
decent.
game. Had a lackluster game. I thought it was going to be more. He was playing Carolina. It should have been more, and he only had what? What did he have in DraftKings? Like 10 points, 12 points.
Yeah, let's say yeah, 13 and a half, which is
Nah.
it's okay. But I mean, there was guys more expensive than him that were like Madison, for example, that produced a lot less. Mike Davis, guys like that. So he actually outperformed those guys. So that was pretty good. This week, do you have any cheap guys that you're eyeing?
I don't want to say it, but I'm going back to the David Johnson well.
Okay.
Hear me out.
Here we
Uh,
go.
Playing Green Bay. Green Bay just gave up a shit ton of rushing yards to Ronald Jones.
Yep.
David Johnson just had the most rushes he's had as a Texan. He had 19. That offense is much better now that Bill O'Brien left. They've looked good. Watson's looked much better. I think this is maybe a game that we see some sort of shootout between the two teams. I think David Johnson could get. He's had double digits for pretty much the entire season, every game except for one against Baltimore. Everything else has been double digits. I think this is the game where he might hit the 20 plus plateau with maybe a receiving touchdown, rushing touchdown, something like that. I like him. He's only 5,300. Same price as Lindsey, who's going to be splitting carries. He's less than Swift, who had one good game. I think the high floor for David Johnson, you're never going to get the 4 point game. Looks like you're always going to get 12, and then with the possibility to get 20. So I like the safe bet there. I think it's his best game yet.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'm not one to give up on David Johnson just yet. We spoke about it with the changes with obviously Bill O'Brien. We think he could only get better. Like we just said, he had his best game as a Texan so far. So far we're looking good on that. So if he can keep that going, that'd be great. I kind of like Jerick McKinnon at 5,800. Why not? He showed he could be that guy when Mostert was out, and guess who's out again?
Yep.
Mostert. So with a run heavy team, I mean Jimmy G's nothing special. So I think that could be pretty good. The only thing that would make me kind of be like, I don't know, would be the matchup against the Patriots. But like
Yeah.
discussed, Lindsey just rushed for 101 yards against them. So McKinnon can, and he's good at, he can catch some balls out of the backfield as well. So
Yeah.
that'd be my play, I guess, at 5,800. I think that's a pretty good start for a starting running back.
Yeah. Yeah. Boston Scott at 5,600, also low key, good one. Playing Thursday night against the Giants. Giants suck. No Miles Sanders.
Yep.
They don't have many receivers. I think that's a good one as well.
Yeah, Boston Scott, that's huge. Anyone playing the Giants and Miles Sanders out is going to crush me, but whatever. We'll see what happens.
All right. You got anything else to add before we go?
That's it for me. Like I said, weird week. I think we're going to have a nice high scoring week this week. Not just in comparison to this week, but just overall, I think it's going to be a solid week. So hopefully everyone does well. Good luck in your matchups. But that's it for me. All right.
Good.
Thanks,
I'm
guys.
good. I got nothing left.
Perfect. Well, appreciate you listening. Good luck in your matchups.